So I'll be reading this morning from the book of Genesis, chapter 25, verses 27 through 34, and I'll be reading from the New International Version. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." And that is why he is also called Edom. Jacob replied, "Well, first, sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is your birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright.
We've got a really neat passage for you this morning. Let's open our Bibles to Genesis 25. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be on the screen as well. And just because I feel like Jacob, and I lobbied for Jacob, to be real honest, when we were talking about what we're going to do in the summer. I kind of pushed Mike and I said, man, I've been studying the patriarchs and Jacob's story, man, it resonates. And so I really want us to preach this. And so here we are. We're preaching it. And what I can say is I see my story and Jacob's story in a lot of ways. And especially like today's message, where you see a tendency that we as humans have to try to force and push ahead God's plan instead of working in His timing and trusting Him in the process. And that's been me. I can relate to that. And God has been gracious in just saying, hey, when I get into that frame of mind, hey, Brian, you just need to slow down. And you just need to trust me. You don't have to manufacture everything. I've called you into this. I'm going to take care of you. And just trust. And so this story, especially today, has been really meaningful to me. And I'm excited to be able to share it with you. And so let's get into it. The title of the message is How to Break a Blessing. And so that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a blessing that is supposed to be a great thing that is completely broken. And last week we met Jacob, the heel grabber, right? Even from birth, he's trying to trip people up to get ahead. And we learned three things. First of all, we learned that Jacob isn't the good guy. He is chosen, but chosen doesn't mean better than. Chosen means appointed. When you're chosen, you are appointed to be a blessing, but not just a blessing for yourself, but a blessing for others. You're a conduit for being a blessing to others. And so just looking at Jacob, we can see he's got a long way to go if he's going to fill that. The second thing that we talked about was, can God really work through someone like this? And the resounding answer is yes, because God's plan doesn't depend on perfect people. It rests on His just crazy faithfulness. And my challenge to you, especially if you're going to read Jacob on your own, is just look at all the times God remains faithful when it seems crazy to do so. And we saw that last week. We're going to see it even more this week and in the weeks to come. And then finally, and this is really where we're going to park today, is this warning. We ended with a warning, right? That you can grasp for what you want, and you can even get it, but it may cost you more than you ever imagined. And just in advance, I'm going to apologize because I'm going to be coming back to this. You're going to hear this statement where it gets annoying, but hopefully by the end of this, you won't miss it. This is because we are going to see this on full display this morning. This idea of grasping and getting what you want and losing so much is really the crux of what we're talking about today. It's a warning that's going to come to life. And so what we talked about last week a bit is Genesis 3, it presented a curse, right? And the curse was presented more conceptually though, right? God was laying out things because of sin entering the world. These are the things that you can expect. With sin always comes a curse. And God lays these things out. and it deals with brokenness in relationships and families and hardship and difficulty in raising kids and all this stuff. And we're going to see that here. And so what Genesis 3 presents, what I would say in theory, Genesis 25 and 27, and they've got to be taught together really, they show us what it looks like in real life. And we're going to see the curse play out, not just from a conceptual standpoint, but it's going to move into a home. It is going to enter a family, and it's going to rip that family apart. And so what we're going to see today, we're going to see the devastation that comes from deception and misplaced desires and spiritual blindness. We're going to see the dangers of sacrificing sacred things to satisfy our cravings and our appetites. And then finally, we're going to encounter the catastrophic consequences that come from grabbing and taking instead of waiting to receive. And so just keep those ideas in the back of your mind. I'm going to keep bringing them in front of us just so we don't miss them. But the Bible, I don't think this passage is not going to let us miss them. And so let us start in Genesis 25, the birthright trade. We pick up where we left off. And so we learned about Jacob and Esau and their childbirth story. And the very first line is when the boys grew up. I'm in verse 27. And all of a sudden, in a snap of a finger, 20 years have passed. You know, the Bible can do that, right? One sentence and we've moved 20 years. And then we come to this really important snapshot that the narrator, the writer doesn't want us to miss. And it says this: Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac loved Esau. Why? Because he ate of his game. But Rebekah loved Jacob. And so right away we're hit with this contrast. And there's division here. Esau, he's rugged, he's impulsive, he is short-sighted. Jacob, he's described as a whole man, which there's a play on words there that we can't fully get into, but he's quiet. He's calculating. He's strategic. And most of all, I think he's deceitful. And then all of a sudden we see the favoritism. It's impossible to miss. Isaac loves Esau. Why? Because of the food, man. You know, like that's the way to Isaac's stomach, or his love is through his stomach. Rebekah loves Jacob for reasons that aren't really explained, but what I'll say is Rebekah and Jacob are a whole lot alike. And so we get into this snapshot, this single moment that I think reveals so much, and we find it in verse 29. It says, once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country. He's been hunting. He's exhausted. He said, let me eat some of that red stew, for I am famished. And then we get a little note from the narrator. This is why he was called Edom. And so in our translations, and I love our translations, but we can miss so much in them. And I think this is one of those places. Like literally what Esau is saying is basically, he says, let me gulp down some of that red. I mean, he sounds like a caveman. I mean, that's what he says. He's like, red, you know, and he's grunting and he's ruled, and we see he's ruled by his stomach. And then the narrator pauses and says, this is why he's called Edom, because Edom means red. And so Esau means hairy, Edom means red, and so he's hairy and he's red. And so just that answers that riddle if you were wondering about that. And then that's where the Edomites will come from. They are the line of Esau, which we'll see later on in the biblical story. And this moment defines Esau. Like this is the defining moment of his life. You want to know what Esau is about, look at this moment. And so we read in verse 31, Jacob has a response. I wonder if he's been prepping this for a while. And Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthright. And then Esau said, look, I'm about to die. What good is a birthright to me? Jacob said, well, swear it to me now. All right, we're gonna make this official. So he swore on an oath to him, selling his birthright. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. I mean, it was like vegetarian stew. It's like, at least hold out for some meat. And he ate and he drank and he got up and left. And then this last verse is so telling. So Esau despised his birthright. His birthright. This is no small thing. This is leadership of the family. This is a double portion of the inheritance so you can lead the family. This is spiritual responsibility of your family. I mean, this is sacred stuff. This is huge stuff. And so this is not just a dumb decision. This is a revelation into the heart of Esau, a window into his soul. Esau is a man that is ruled by appetite, a lot like his father Isaac. He's hungry. I would call him overly dramatic. Again, I've never been on a hunting excursion. He may have felt like he was going to die, but I mean, selling your birthright for a bowl of stew, I mean, I think there needs to be a little bit more common sense than that. He's completely short-sighted, and he trades something of immense value, his birthright, for a bowl of stew. And Jacob, man, he's scheming. He's just trying to position himself to be the head of the family. And we see all this, there's a verse in Hebrews 12 in verses 16 and 17 that describe this. And that what it says is Esau was godless. He was godless because for a single meal, he sold his inheritance rights. And even when he later begged for the blessing in tears, he couldn't undo what he had done. Now just pause there for a minute. Does this sound familiar? Can I think of anyone else who traded something of just immense value for a bite of food? I seem to recall a pair of humans in a garden, right? Seeing something appetizing, desiring it, taking it, eating it, and losing something priceless. I'm going to keep bringing it up. I apologize if it gets annoying, but Genesis 3 is all over this thing. We're seeing it play out in real life. And so Esau despised what was holy. Jacob, on the other hand, he wanted the blessing. And that's a good thing, right? Jacob saw the value in the blessing and wanted it, but he wanted it so much that he was willing to take it through deception. And so right here, you got one brother that is playing the role of the duped humans. You've got another brother who's playing the role of the snake. And then you've got this birthright serving in the role of the fruit, right? And we're going to see this a couple different times, how we could take that tree moment and rearrange it in different ways and kind of recognize where the characters' hearts are at by where they fall into that lineup. And the story here, and this is where I want to, before I move on to Genesis 27, I just want to lay something out in front of you to keep in the back of your mind because it's going to come back into play. But this story is not just about two brothers. It's a picture of two flawed approaches to finding life. And we all want to find life. We are all seeking life in different ways. And so for Esau, right, how does he want to find life? His way of approaching and finding life is to take a shortcut, is to find it through instant gratification, to find it in those things that just give him instant feedback or instant pleasure. Jacob, on the other hand, his way of taking life is manipulation, ambition, to try to take what only God can give. And is this not the way the world works? In one way, Esau is looking at the world's way and saying, I'm going to take things the world's way. That's how I'm going to find life. And then Jacob, on the other hand, is saying, I don't necessarily want things the world's way, but I'm going to take it the way the world says to take it. I'm going to take it for myself. I'm going to take it through deception. Whatever it takes, I'm going to get it. And that raises a question for us. Are we looking for life in the easy stuff, in the things that are instant? Are we like Esau, treating sacred things as secondary? Or maybe you find yourself more like Jacob, where you're trying to force something that God has wanted to give you all along, and you're just trying to make it happen on your own. And so again, keeping those questions in mind because they're going to come back into play. But now we're going to get to Genesis 27. I call this the great blessing heist. All right, it's in 5 scenes, and things are about to get even crazier. If you thought this scene was bad, it's going to just blow up. And so the great blessing heist, scene 1, Isaac's plan. So flip over to chapter 27, we're in verse 1, and just so you understand, you're going to get full things on the on the screen as far as verses go. I'm going to have to paraphrase these because when I put the full verses in, it almost doubled my word count, and we were going to be here a lot longer. And so I'm finagling this a little bit to just try to make it flow a little bit better. So just forgive me for that, but and bear with me. So verses 1 through 4. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." And said, "Behold, I am old. I don't know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver, your bow, and go out into the field and hunt game for me. Prepare for me delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." So, Isaac's old. He's blind. Just something to consider. Typically, when the Bible talks about physical blindness, it's also alluding to spiritual blindness. Those things are usually tied together. And so physical blindness, it mirrors spiritual blindness, and we definitely see that with Isaac. Not only is Isaac both physically and spiritually blind, I think he's a lot like Esau in that maybe he's a little bit overdramatic. Again, I don't know where he's at, and so in all fairness, I can't say maybe he felt like he was dying. But what I know is he's actually not going to die for another 20 years. And so he's got a lot of long life ahead of him. And I think that's what's striking to me is, he thinks he's going to die. Have we heard this before? Right? Didn't Esau just say before the whole reason he gave away his birthright was because he thought he was going to die? A little bit overdramatic. And here we're seeing the same thing. And in both situations, you got food involved, right? And so why the urgency? Take it with a grain of salt, but here's what I think, and I think the text speaks to this. He wants food. Are you seeing a trend, right? Esau wanted food as well. Not just food, he wants comfort food. He wants the food that he loves. And that's what drives this moment. And so the text doesn't say if Isaac knew that Jacob was the chosen one. It kind of leaves that up in the air for us to try to think about. But what I do know is, regardless of whether he knew or not, we're seeing a man who is absolutely ruled by his stomach. He is driven by his appetites. He's not led by faith. He's led by what tastes good. So Esau, he gives his birthright up for stew. Isaac is ready to give the blessing away for a meal. I mean, these are holy, sacred, special things, and they're just being treated with so casually. Yeah, I'll give away the blessing. This is God's blessing. This is like the Eden blessing that was given to Abram and meant to be passed down from generation to generation. This thing is supposed to be the way that the world is saved. And Isaac right here is just willing to give it up for a birth of stew. No discretion involved whatsoever. I mean, in fact, we're going to see this word delicious food. It's going to be on repeat over and over and over again in this chapter. And so again, just like in Genesis 3, something sacred is about to be given away for some food that is pleasing to the senses. Isaac is about to bless the wrong thing because it looks good and it tastes good. And so in just doing a little bit of connect the dots, the curse isn't just about a snake in a garden. It can also be about a blind father with a fork in his hand. And this brings us to scene 2, Rebekah's scheme. Now Rebekah, in verse 5, was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt game, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Hey, Jacob, I heard your father say to Esau, bring me game, prepare delicious food for me that I may eat it, and I bless you before the Lord before I die." So Rebekah's eavesdropping. As soon as Esau leaves and she jumps into action, are you starting to get the sense that this is not a united family? This is like dysfunction on full display. It's a fractured household, full of division, full of favoritism, full of distrust. And you just have to think, again, part of the Genesis 3 curse, God said there's going to be some results from this sin that's being introduced in the world. And one of them is going to be broken families. Wife, your desire is going to be for your husband, and the husband is going to rule in an unhealthy way. And child rearing and child raising is going to be really painful. And we are seeing all of that here. This is not the Eden ideal. The Eden ideal is mutual partnership together in unity. I mean, this is what it looks like when the curse hits a home. Rebekah doesn't trust Isaac. More than that, she doesn't trust God. So she decides to take matters into her own hands. In verse 8, now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Go get 2 goats. I'll make food your father loves, and you'll bring it to him so that he blesses you instead. So she's trying to force what God's already promised her. She has no excuse, except for the fact that she just wants to help God out, and usually that doesn't end well. But then comes this haunting exchange, and it still kind of gives me goosebumps when I read about this. And so you've got Jacob. He responds in verse 11. Basically, he's worried. He said, Mom, my brother's hairy. I'm smooth. There's a whole sort of wordplay with that we don't have time to get into. What if my father touches me and it would appear that I'm trying to trick him? You're trying to trick him. There's no appearance whatsoever. You're trying to trick him. And he's like, he would curse me. And what if he curses me instead of blesses me? And then listen to what Rebekah says. Let your curse fall on me, my son. Only obey my voice. Did you catch that? First off, obey my voice. I mean, that phrase should stop us cold. Whose voice are we supposed to be listening to? Whose voice are we supposed to be obeying? In a world of competing voices, we need to be careful not to listen to the wrong ones. And right here, Rebekah's voice is definitely the wrong one. But then even past that, let the curse fall on me. She has no idea what she's asking for. That is going to come back into play. It's chilling. It's essentially prophetic, as we're going to see, because she believes that she can bear the consequences herself. Grasping can get you what you want, and it can cost you more than you ever imagined. And we're going to see that because she has no idea what this is going to cost her. So just tuck that line away in the back of your mind. We're going to see it come out again. So we get to scene 3. Jacob's deception. So Rebekah takes desirable clothes, and there's a whole other thing there, that word desirable clothes. And, there's only 2 times in Genesis where people are dressed up like this. One is in Genesis 3, the other one's here. So again, there's some interesting connections there that we just don't have time to go through, but it would be a cool rabbit hole to go down. Anyway, verse 18, Jacob, he went in to his father. He said, my father. And Isaac said, here I am. Who are you, my son? And Jacob said, I am Esau, your firstborn. So that's the first lie. And then verse 20, Isaac said, how did you find it so quickly? Jacob answered, because the Lord your God gave me success. Now that's a pretty mysterious phrase, because I have to wonder, is he just flat out lying, or does he actually believe this? Does he actually believe that God is giving him success? Because, we have a tendency in James that talks about deceiving ourselves, and being delusional. And I just wonder here, maybe Jacob actually believes that God is working this out through his lies, and he's delusional enough to believe that, and so he's dragging God into his lie. And the irony here, it's so thick, using the name of the Lord to cover a lie. And then in verse 21, then Isaac said, come near, that I may touch you. Jacob went near, and Isaac felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, so he blessed him. So Isaac, he's confused. He questions, but he doesn't question enough to stop. He hesitates, but he lets his senses override his discernment. And we move on, verse 27. So he came near Jacob and kissed him. And Isaac smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him. Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. And then he gives them this amazing blessing, this Eden blessing. May God give you the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, which that's kind of interesting. He only has one brother. So obviously we're talking about something besides just Esau. may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. I mean, this is the blessing of Abraham that is supposed to be passed down from generation to generation for God's rescue plan to take place. There's power in this blessing. And yet, how does Isaac present it? He gives it away, not after prayer, not after spiritual discernment, but after a meal guided by his appetite and confused by a deceptive voice. He treats the blessing almost the way Esau treated the birthright, as something to trade for a moment of comfort. And Jacob, he gets the blessing, but not by faith. How does it work out? He dresses up like someone else. He speaks in someone else's name. He's pretending to be someone he's not. And the only way he receives the blessing is by wearing a mask. I mean, again, back to the garden. A voice whispers a lie, a desire is seized, and something holy is taken under disguise. And Jacob walks away with the blessing, but the blessing's contaminated. It's not a gift of trust, it's the result of deception. And this brings us to scene 4. Esau returns. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, in verse 30, Esau came in. Isaac said, "Who are you?" Esau replied, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." And in that moment, something registers. Isaac knows he's been deceived, and it hits like a freight train. It says, Isaac trembled violently and said, "Then who was it that brought me food and I blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." You know, Isaac's shaken, but the blessing stands. It's not something that could be revoked. When Esau heard these words, he let out a loud and bitter cry. And this is a hard moment in the story. And he's saying, "Bless me, even me also, Father. Can you not bless me? Is there not enough blessing for all of us?" And this is an interesting part because I think we're supposed to sympathize with Esau here. I mean, there is real anguish. He's been deceived. And just kind of two interesting things here. First off, you get this, the blessing was always supposed to be overly abundant and shared with everyone, even Abraham. When Abraham asked, "Can I not bless Ishmael too?" And God said, "Yeah, there's plenty of blessing to go around. I'll bless Ishmael too." But it's like this blessing that's supposed to be so abundant, it's put into the hands of this guy who treats it so casually, and all of a sudden it's reduced. There's not enough blessing. No, I got one blessing. You know, he will like pronounce a blessing over Esau, but it sounds more like a curse. It's like, if you're going to give me that blessing, just don't give me that one. I don't want that. And then the other thing here is you see Esau's cry. It's actually the same kind of cry that God made when he was grieved over the rebellion of people and had to flood the world and start over. There's an anguish here that we're supposed to say, yeah, Esau's grief and anguish, it's justified. He's been done wrong. He's been deceived. Even with his poor decisions, he's presented as a sympathetic character here. But the blessing's irreversible. So Jacob now has the birthright and the blessing. And so one of the things that I struggled with here and trying to figure out was, what's the difference between the blessing and the birthright? You know, why do you need both? What's the big deal? And so just to kind of clarify, if you're having that same question, just a little side note. So the birthright is like the legal status. It's what's legal that made Jacob the head of the family. So when Esau gave that away, he was basically giving up his ability to lead the family. It was legal. The blessing is a spoken word of destiny. It's this prophetic invocation of God's favor. And there's power behind it. It is spiritually potent. And it's binding. And obviously it's irreversible. It's like a launching pad into the future of God's plan. And what we know is God wanted to give this to Jacob, but not in this way. And so Isaac intended to give the blessing to Esau, Through deception, Jacob took it, and with it, he secured more than Isaac's favor. He ensured the spiritual inheritance of Abraham's line would come through him. And so this is huge. Jacob now holds all the cards. But just for a second, just think about this. This is not how God's blessing was supposed to be obtained. Right? We said it only can be received through trust and surrender, not through deception and scheming and taking. And we're going to see how this plays out. And in a way, we're going to wonder, is this a blessing or a curse? Because actions and choices have consequences. And what we're going to see is the fallout is coming. And so we hit scene 5. I think scene 5 is the one that brings everything together. I call it the fallout. And I am going to read this, verses 41 through 46, because it's just so potent. It says, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. I think that's making way too light. It's more than a grudge. He wants to kill him. He said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. When Rebekah was told what her older son had said, and this is interesting because we're saying that Esau thought these things in his heart. Somehow Rebekah was told about these things. How does she know? It's an interesting mystery. So she goes to Jacob and says, your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while, just until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, then I'll send word for you. You'll come back there. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, and she's coming up with an excuse to send Jacob away, I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from the Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. And so, she's coming up with this plan. She convinces Isaac to send Jacob off. She thinks it's going to be temporary. It's just a quick trip, just a short little exile. Why should I lose both of you in one day? If your brother killed you, then he's dead to me and I've lost you. And so let's not let that happen. But she's wrong. What she thinks is going to happen is not what actually happens. Jacob's going to be gone for 20 years. She will never see him again. And that's the tragic irony. Rebekah gets what she wants, but she loses what she loves most. She thought she was protecting her son, but in trying to manipulate and control the circumstances, she loses him forever. The curse really did come down on her. She really did take the curse. Her plan worked, but it cost her everything. And then Jacob, right? He wins, right? He gets the blessing. But just think of how this blessing is supposed to work. There's no celebration. There's no walking in joy. There's no purpose. He's walking straight into exile. He's not honored. He's on the run. Exile is not supposed to be for the chosen. Exile is for the cursed. It's for the ones that miss out on the blessing. They're the ones that are sent out into exile. And yet here Jacob is. He's blessed, but he's banished. And he leaves the promised land and goes back to like the area of Babylon in shame, and he's hunted. And then he's just been told in that blessing that he's going to rule over his brothers. But what's going to happen next? He's going to go serve someone more deceptive than him for 20 years. This whole thing is just so upside down. The blessing's been passed, but the chaos is just beginning. And it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And so I just want, as we're closing out, I just want to point out, are you seeing there's no good person in this story? Nobody is done right in this. It makes me think of the part in Romans where there's no one good, not even one. And this is kind of affirmation of that. Everybody's going their own way and they're screwing up in their own special way. And I'll be honest, as I've looked at these and really reflected on these different characters in this, It's like I've seen myself in parts of them. And that's what I want to challenge you with. Do you see yourself maybe in some of these individuals? Because it's not just their story. I think it's our story too. So like take Esau, for example. Esau gave up something sacred for something instant and easy. He was driven by a hunger for more stuff, for easy stuff. And so he traded what was lasting for something that was just so minute and temporary. And it wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was a window into his heart. This is who he was. He didn't value what God had given him. And so it forces us to ask, what sacred things are we treating lightly? What are we sacrificing for short-term satisfaction? Just think about that for a moment. Are there places in your life where you are sacrificing something that's sacred for something that's short-term or easy? Or are we treating sacred things lightly? Then we come to Rebekah. Rebekah couldn't wait on God's promise. She believed it depended on her and her manipulation. And in trying to secure the future of her son, she lost him entirely. God's promises are sure, but when we grasp instead of trust, we often get what we want and lose what we love. Are there areas in your life where you are trying to control maybe things that God has already promised to you? Are you trying to make them happen in your own strength, in your own way, instead of just trusting? Or we can look at Isaac, blind in more ways than one. He let his preferences, his appetite guide his choices. And so instead of spiritual discernment, he relied on what felt good, on what smelled good, on what tasted good. And in doing so, he nearly gave the covenant to someone who despised it. That is the opposite of wisdom. Spiritual blindness isn't just about being wrong. It's about being ruled by the wrong things. I'll say that again. Spiritual blindness is not just about being wrong. It's about being ruled by the wrong things. And so are there blind spots in your life? I've had to ask that of myself. We talk about, search me, O God, know my heart. We need that because there are blind spots that I have that I need to be made aware of. Am I blind to what God is doing because of what I want in the moment? Am I trying to take shortcuts instead of just waiting on God and instead of trusting God? And then finally we get to Jacob, the one who got the blessing, the blessed one, but not the peace. He put on someone else's clothes. He used someone else's name. And though he walked away with the blessing, he is walking straight into exile. And it's so crazy because exile is not meant for the blessed one. And so you can fake your way into a moment of success, but it's not going to make you whole. True blessing comes not through scheming, it comes through surrender. It comes through being willing to be transformed, not through force, but through formation. And so I don't know if you find yourself in one of these characters, in one of these stories. If you do, I just want to encourage you, you're not alone. I think we all have either found ourselves in one of these places at some point in our life or maybe even now. And this is the good news of the gospel, that this is the story of the entire Bible, God working through broken people in broken stories, not because they're worthy, but because he is faithful. And I think the greatest testament to this is found in the faithfulness of God that's seen in Jesus. And so here's what I want you to do. We're going to do things a little bit different today. I want you to go ahead and grab the communion elements. Because I think the thing that has struck me the most, and I said this last week, but all of these stories, they point to Jesus. That's how we should be reading these stories. They all are leading us to Jesus. They culminate in Jesus. And so I think about Jacob versus Jesus, and Jesus is the true and better Jacob. I mean, just think about this. You've got Jacob. He covers himself with goat skin to get the blessing for himself. Jesus, on the other hand, he allowed himself to be stripped of everything in order to obtain God's blessing for us. Jacob deceived and manipulated his father to get the blessing. Jesus obeyed his father even when he didn't want to, not to get the blessing for himself, but to become a curse on our behalf so that we could get the blessing. Jacob deceived his father with a kiss. Jesus was betrayed with a kiss. Jacob fled into exile because of his decisions and his deception. Jesus willingly entered exile, carrying all of our grasping and our failure and our selfishness and our shame. Jacob will come out transformed after a lot of pain. Jesus, after a lot of pain, not only came out transformed, but he made our transformation possible. Is there any doubt that Jesus is the better and ultimate chosen one? And because of Jesus, you and I no longer have to fight for our blessing. There's no need to manipulate or to scheme or to try to earn it. We don't have to wear a mask. We don't have to fake our way into the Father's favor. You don't have to earn what's already been given to you. And so that's my prayer for you. I don't know where you're at, but if you see yourself in one of these characters, just know that's not the end. Transformation is possible. We just have to be willing to be transformed. And it's offered to us as a gift. And so just as I think about Jesus and I think about how he is the chosen one, the blessed one who, again, didn't hoard the blessing for himself, but shared it with everyone, I can't help but just take that thought into as we enter this time of communion. And so, if you would, go ahead and take the bread. Jesus, on the night that he was to be crucified, spoke to his disciples and said, guys, this is my body that is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Let's take the bread together. And then he said, this cup, this is my blood. I'm pouring out for you, for your blessing, for your transformation, so that you can come back to the Father. This is a gift. And so take this, do this in remembrance of me. As we sing this last song, I hope your heart's been stirred. I hope that you feel God's presence drawing you close. And if there's some business that you need to do with God, I just pray you would take the time to really let the words sink in, but also, let him draw close to you and draw close to him.